Good evening, ghouls and gals, freaks and creeps, and welcome to the Terrazona podcast, where we'll be talking about everything from the paranormal to the strange, the haunted, occult, murder mysteries, true crimes, and everything in between. Everything to satisfy your spine turning and gut wrenching needs. I'm your host, Sebastian, and with me is my co host.
Eric.
Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the cryptids of Arizona. Now, what are cryptids, you might ask? Those are those strange and unidentified creatures that we can neither confirm nor deny if they exist or not. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Rougarou, Megalodon, etc. A lot of people don't realize that Arizona has its own monsters that walk among us. Are they real? Possibly. Do they really walk amongst the shadows? Well, let's find out. So, Eric, go ahead and tell us about our first two monsters on our list in our beautiful Golden State.
All right. The first cryptid is Arizona's very own Bigfoot. Earliest sightings of this creature were by I.W. Stevens in 1903. Later, a cryptozoologist named Don Davis claims to have been sightings in the 1940s. The creature is described as a massive, bipedal humanoid covered in a thick dark hair and reddish soul-sucking eyes. This creature stands 7 feet tall and having a great gut-wrenching odor that once you smell it, it cannot be forgotten.
Wow, that's gross. I'd hate to be known as the world's stinkiest monster coming up out here.
They say Bigfoot also has that.
Really?
Yes, has a strong odor.
See, I didn't even know that. Like, cryptids are a little out of my wheelhouse. I mean, I'm more of a ghost and demons, alien type guy. So with those, I can follow a little more. Cryptids are something new to me.
I've noticed that through doing the research and reading about the cryptids that a lot of them say they carry distinctive odors. So maybe that's just a common
trait amongst them.
Yes.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's been claimed to have very peculiar habits. It is a nocturnal omnivore, very territorial, will go to any lengths to protect its turf, and it's known to roam deep into the Arizona forest, which is similar to the Bigfoot legend. You know, he's in the woods, very big, massive creature, thick hair covered.
I wonder what their strength levels would be, because you figure Bigfoot, a lot of people describe him more ape-like. I mean, silverbacks are incredibly strong. I mean, they can bend steel bars like nothing.
Aren't they supposed to be like as strong as like 5 men?
Being a big National Geographic guy, yeah, I heard gorillas are so strong that they can bend two or three steel pipes just in a flex, and they can bow it to a complete arc.
I'm thinking most likely that it's got to be as strong as a gorilla, a full-grown gorilla.
Yeah, being 7 foot something, and if it is leaning more towards ape-like, I guarantee you that's at least 10, 20 men strong, easy.
Could be. Makes sense. Okay. Massive footprints, measuring 22 inches long or greater, have been found.
Sheesh.
And it is said that once this animal captures you, the Mongolian monster will decapitate its prey before devouring it and leaving it in a gruesome scene. I don't know if that is true or not, because what are the odds of you actually being able to see it?
Yeah.
With it, once it's captured its prey and is about to, if it does eat whatever it captures, would you really stand there and watch, or would you run away?
Yeah, I would try and run. I wonder what's the significance of the decapitation.
Um, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I mean, if it's more animalistic, that seems a little far fetched,
Yeah,
at least for my opinion.
it's that's what would give it the notion to remove the head before eating it.
I mean,
Unless it just does it it's in a fit of rage. Once it captures somebody, it's just tearing whatever it is apart.
yeah. Only other thought it would be like kind of like how it's common sense, pull off like a shrimp tail. Maybe something it can't crush the skull or its teeth can't eat the skull. I don't know. I
Oh, that
mean,
makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah,
There,
that's kind of a weird one
if
on
it
me.
does, there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, common sense would lead it to some kind of method to its madness.
It has also been said that it is the cousin to another um, Bigfoot esque creature known as the Mogollon Rim Sasquatch. So basically, it's saying that it is in that Bigfoot Sasquatch. Some, might even ask, is it the missing link type creature?
Yeah, because I mean, the way these are being described, they almost sound like Precambrian style men.
Almost Neanderthal like.
Yeah, I would say so.
Maybe not a not a Neanderthal, but something like it. You know, and there, people speculate that it's a Bigfoot, that it's a Sasquatch. Some speculate that it's just a real life monster.
Yeah, because I mean, if you do the math, even looking at just the dinosaur gap between, when they started documenting things like that, there's nothing to really say the progression of caveman in the in between.
That's why I mentioned, is it the missing link, the between
The
man,
then and now.
yeah, the men of today compared to like we said, the Neanderthal, the Cro-Magnon, that gap in between.
Yeah, so that's definitely interesting, and it's weird to kind of come across now that we have our own Sasquatch, we have our own Bigfoot, and then now there's been sightings all over the world of Bigfoot, even as far as I think they said even in Tibet.
Which that would doesn't I think that brings into called the Yeti, which is the Bigfoot that lives in a colder region, but basically along the lines of the same. The Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, the Yeti, they're all different different descriptions of pretty much the same creature.
Kind of brings into question too if there is one, could there possibly be another? Maybe a female. I mean, think about it. This species has got to last somehow. I mean, because if one died and it was only a male or even only a female, there wouldn't be reports of so many in different regions. It just doesn't make sense.
And speaking of being in different regions, how did they how did they all get to be in these different places?
Exactly. If it's only in one place, because I mean, Tibet's not exactly a stone's throw from Arizona, or even in, let's just say, like Michigan. Like, Tibet is a whole other continent.
Yeah, so what or how did they get there, and were they all together at one time?
Yeah, it could have been the Great Continental Shift when
The
the Ice Age started to
also
fracture off.
Brings in going back to school a little bit when they talk about Pangea. when supposedly all the continents were one before they broke apart. So maybe that's how.
Then they just learn to adapt to their new
To their
geographical
yeah, to their new
summit and
surroundings.
climate. That's cool. I didn't even know Arizona had half of this stuff.
Me either. I'm learning.
And I'm an Arizona native. I've been here coming on 34 years.
So we're learning as you guys are learning. Okay, the other monster or cryptid that we have is also in the Mogollon area is the Mogollon mermaid. It's the half woman, half fish creature. And the earliest sightings of this creature was in 1950 by a Boy Scout group in the Black Canyon Lake. They described the creature as being beautiful in the face with long flowing hair and mesmerizing eyes. But below the waist, she had a scaly and serpentine-like body. That's pretty typical. What
Yeah,
what
what
they
I
say
would expect.
as what most mermaids look like. Nothing that would separate it from any other. But just the thought of having a mermaid in Arizona.
Yeah, because I mean, are there even ways you can get past like some of our lakes to
No,
like into
so
open water?
So it would have to have been. Now you have to ask if there is one. How did it get here?
Yeah, because as far as I know, Arizona doesn't have any riverways that can get out into open waters, to like coastal lines.
I'm not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not very geographically sharp.
Um, like most mermaid legends, it says it possesses a hypnotic power that lures its victims with the siren song.
I was right about to say it has to be the siren's wail.
Yeah, the beautiful song that draws men to the mermaid, and then they either drowned it, caused ships to crash against rocks.
I wonder if a merman, if they're just kind of throwing a spitball here, would a merman have almost the same effect? Maybe a siren's song, but that is more hypnotic towards women.
I never thought about it.
I never thought about it till right now because if like being a fan of like Greek mythology and even other things, the siren's wail it only has an effect on men, but obviously mermen and merwomen have to, if they did exist, they have children, they continue their legacy. So wouldn't a merman, I guess, have the same effect to surface dwellers but just women?
That's a good question, but I don't know. It makes total sense. It makes total sense. But if you think about it, you don't really hear
anything of mermen.
Yeah, it's more just the mermaids.
Show the men some love, man.
Other claims it can shapeshift.
See, that's a new one on me.
Yes,
I've never heard mermaid.
I didn't know they could do that either. They tend to take the form of lost loved ones or things that would be tempting to strangers. So, like we said, could be transformed into the love of a sea captain or somebody in the Navy, somebody out on a fishing boat, or it could just turn itself into look like a beautiful woman on the rocks and cause a man to crash his boat. So
see, that's crazy. I've never heard of
I didn't either. I knew of the siren song, but not the ability to shapeshift.
Yeah, the only shapeshift anything I've ever heard that they can do is separate their tail or fin, to become legs.
Yeah.
But wow, shapeshifting is a whole new aspect on the whole mermaid perspective for me.
The most recent sighting of this mermaid was in 2012 by a couple near the Woods Canyon Lake. That's pretty crazy.
And especially for it to be so
That's
frequent, so recent. About
That's,
13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 13 years ago.
12.
Oh, wow.
12 years. They claim the siren song was coming from the lake water and that the haunting melody still scares them to this day.
See, that's crazy.
I wonder, I mean, what is that song like if it scared you that 12 years later you're still scared of that song?
Because, I mean, the way it's described in every book, even in movies, they always say it's so beautiful, and it's like, you know, it's more haunting in the sense that it's just such a calming melody that maybe we got it wrong the whole time. And, you know, since Hollywood doesn't really know, or the only people who hear it are people who are no longer with us, because the mermaid, from what I heard, is cannibalistic. So it more than likely eats the people that it pulls near. So, I mean, the only people who really hear the sirens wail is the people who are no longer on the earth. So, who knows? Maybe Hollywood got it wrong.
Makes you think.
Yeah, wouldn't it be something like the only way to really kill a zombie is like shooting him in the pinky toe? And we got it all wrong this whole time. Thanks, Hollywood.
All right, those are the two that I have. Why don't you go ahead and hit us with a couple more, Seth?
So let's see. This is a completely new aspect for me, something I never thought I would even be talking about. It's a creature called the Rake. And like I said, cryptids are a little out of my wheelhouse. But here we go. These live in the Grand Canyon. They live near Peach Springs. So from the way it's described, it's a 9-foot tall, flesh-eating creature. It has a grayish, almost faded off-white skin tone, and its fingernails, or just its claws, are as long as human fingers.
Wow.
And they say that's where it gets its name, the Rake.
And this is in the Grand Canyon?
Yep, near Peach Springs.
Wow, I never heard of this.
See, very similar to the siren's wail. They even give off a weird, high-pitched scream or a shriek. Because I've heard it been described in two ways. It was a deafening, high-pitched shriel, and then it's more of like almost like that sound that they would make in scanners, just like a high-pitched, like ringing scream type sound. A really interesting way to describe it as well. Sightings have occurred as far back as the 1800s. There's been several journal entries about these things. They've even been mentioned as far back as even earlier, I believe, in the 15 and 1600s. But they've also been seen in Europe, I believe, as far as Germany, Britain, and Scotland, if I'm not mistaken. So what I want to know is, how did it get way over here if you're way over there in Europe?
Once again, it brings up the question of
the Pangea. Was there more than one to begin with? Because in folklore, from what it says here in some other folklore, they've also been depicted as fallen angels or demons. Not so much a creature that's, I would say, of natural origins. Yeah, it's almost more spiritual origin. So that's definitely pretty crazy. So on like a more terrifying note, they are aggressive. They will attack if they feel threatened, and if they're looking for food, you're the first thing on the list.
So And you did say they're cannibalistic?
Yes, they will eat their own. If they feel like it's means of survival, they'll eat their own kind
So they
as well
just
as people.
okay.
So one of the strangest things that has been talked about is one person actually took their own life after surviving an encounter with the rake.
I wonder if the rake has a supernatural power that can make you do things against your will.
They said it had some. So the way the encounter was described is the person was. So this is back in the 1960s. So he was hunting and he stumbled across a weird looking creature that was over the prey that he shot. So when he went over to it, he saw this weird creature kind of hunched over the deer that he shot. And it was already like ripping into the meat. So he's like, he thought it was a person. So he's like, hey, you need to get away from my kill. I'm going to take it home. So when he walked up on it, the rake turned and looked at him and lunged at him, clawed his chest. And I think they said he had 16-inch lacerations, at least 4, cross all the way. So he barely made it out.
Okay.
So
were there ever any pictures taken?
Nothing
so
to really. It's more just the story.
Okay.
So that's definitely interesting. And they say that the man who took his own life was kind of plagued by nightmares, not because of the ordeal. Like the nightmares were almost so bizarre, and he was seeing the rake repeatedly in his nightmares that he couldn't hack it anymore. That it was like the only way to just, I guess, to alleviate himself from seeing it night after night after night. So
he took his own life.
That was his only real escape to stop seeing the visions. So definitely a weird one. So continuing on, they say it has some kind of almost an EMP type ability. For those of you who don't know, EMP is electromagnetic pulse. So with EMP, you're able to actually knock out electronical devices or throw electrical current off to offset other electrical devices. So at Peach Springs power plant, people said that they were alleged sightings of the rake, that the whole power plant went down. No storms, nothing going on with the water to disrupt the energy flow, but the whole town and power plant.
Could they prove it was linked to the rake, or it was just speculation?
Speculations, but I wonder if can just one do that, or it has to be multiple. Because I mean, a whole power plant.
That's a lot of energy to be able to try to wipe out.
Exactly, and like being a big fan of military, even what they call chaff grenades can only shut down maybe a room full of computers. So to shut down a whole power plant, every computer, every floor, the big power generators, the water pumps for the water, that's a lot of EMP. Also, a gentleman, let's just call him Brad for anonymity. So Mr. Brad was a bar owner, and he encountered a rake near his trash dumpster. It was around 2 a.m., and he heard some strange noises coming out the back of the bar. So he grabbed his bat, to make sure it wasn't, people just being wild out in the streets and everything. So he walks out there and he sees what he described as a pale, grayish-skinned, humanoid-looking figure. He knew it definitely wasn't human, judged by the way it was standing. He says it was almost hunched over with knees touching its chest. So that must mean from sitting on the ground but almost hunched with your knees touching your chest has to be close to the 9-10 foot tall mark.
Does it say if it's often spotted near people, or does it tend to stay more towards like caves and or forest areas?
It's really hard to say because, like I said, even the ones in Europe, their patterns of behavior are described way different. That they're more like they roam, they have ventured into like little villages and stuff like that. You know, a lot of the Gaelic and Scotsman's, they used to tell stories of, I forgot what they called it, so I'm not going to try and remember it because I don't want to butcher it. But they even, used to tell the little children, hey, you don't behave, the rake, it eats you and all this other stuff. So, I mean, I
So
think they
it's
would
been
say it comes
in-
in the villages.
So it's been in folklore and legend for quite some time.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking like knights, time in England. So we're looking at like the Dark Ages. That's like the 1200s, 1400s. So that's definitely pretty interesting. Also, there was a gravedigger. So for anonymity, we'll also change his name. We'll just call him Mr. Diggs. No pun intended, though. So he just finished a funeral service. So I believe the gentleman said this is around 7-ish or so. It was his last service of the day. So as he's doing the final touches for the person's service and finishing up, covering the grave, he saw a weird figure that was like peering at him from behind one of the massive tombstones. And he's like, what is that? So, he hopped out of the grave, finished laying the dirt, grabbed his shovel, and he went to ask the person to leave. But when he saw them, like the person was hunched and he saw their hand almost overlapping the entire tombstone with the tip of the rake's claws actually over gripping the top of the tombstone. So when he saw that, he just ran back into the gravekeeper's house, barred the door, and kept a shotgun aimed at the door just in case it tried to come through the front door.
But nothing came of it. It never came to the door or tried to get inside.
Nope. He said it was more just a precautionary type thing, that he didn't know if it moved after he tried to run for it. He didn't look back. Just ran inside, barred the door. He did say his dogs were whimpering, and he's like, he had Dobermans. Most gravediggers keep Dobermans because if people try to grave rob or hop the fence, and if it rains, most dogs lose scent when things get wet. Dobermans don't. Plus, they'll still hunt by sight. That's why they keep Dobermans. So, definitely pretty crazy. So, that's all we have for the rake.
I did hear that they're known to live in some caves, and inside the cave there is a hotel built that you can stay in, and people stay there because they want to have an experience, maybe seeing the rake or learning something about it.
Wow, and this is up near the Grand Canyon they actually do this?
Yes.
Okay. My
Or-
curiosity speaks because I would love to
Or
go.
what was it? The Peach
Springs.
Springs.
So that would be definitely an experience. Because, I mean, how much grit can you really have to really want to go and see something that
if
it
you
plagued
even-
a man in his nightmares so
Even if you
bad?
take away the rake itself, but a hotel inside a cave,
That's
that's cool in itself,
now we can know how bears feel when they hibernate.
pretty much.
I think that's definitely something pretty interesting. Whoever would have heard of a hotel literally built in a cave? That just goes to show you the modern day.
Got to put that on the list
Yep.
of definite places to go and see.
So with that, we conclude the rake. Our last little cryptid that we have on this list are called the reptoids. Now, this is actually much more recent. This happened in 2014. So, the story goes, a group of bikers who were heading out towards the Scourges, which is the big biker rally, were coming through the Sonoran Desert, heading out there to California. So they stop at a little gas station, rest stop type area. You know, they're filling up their bikes, getting all their rolls and stuff ready to head out towards Scourges. They look across the street and see a strange person kind of just like eyeballing them. So, of course, these guys look at him and they're like, you know, kind of like, what are you looking at type thing. Well, the person kind of hunched over almost, they said, in an ape-like appearance, but was 6 feet tall, really, really skinny, and had very ape monkey-like movements. When he stopped and turned and faced them, they said it looked like a snake man, but with black eyes, completely black, and a yellow stripe down the middle. His face had a reddish green colored scale, in which had like a weird, almost desert sand look to it, with the almost grittier texture, 2 holes for the nostrils, and no eyelids. And his body was completely hairless. So when they looked at him, they were a little offset by it. He turned, looked at him, waved, but not like a regular wave, almost like they said not aggression, but just like a firm wave. He looked at him almost in like a velociraptor style, bent at the knee, took off and ran into the desert at a very high, almost inhuman type speed.
So, is it more of a lizard type person or a dinosaur?
That I don't know. There's really not a whole lot to go on from the riptoid. There's only been, from what my report says, 3 alleged sightings. This was the most recent and where there was the most interaction. Most people see it at a distance, but they're like, we can't confirm it looked like a snake guy or he was just a really weird looking gentleman. So, yeah, this was just 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because how fast do you have to... For somebody to describe it as an inhuman speed, how fast are you really moving?
You got to be moving pretty quick if you're not running you're running faster than a human. I mean, there's some fast humans in the world, but if they're saying it was inhuman speed,
yeah,
it was really moving.
Because I mean, like Usain Bolt has broken every record that there was to be set, and that dude's fast. So the way they're describing this is going to outrun Bolt. So what I want to wonder too is, how does it go from being ape-like to, I want to say like a raptor with, you know, the bend at the kneecap?
Maybe it's just because it was squatting with its hands on the ground.
I don't know. It was weird because the way they describe it, he was just like hunched over, just kind of arms almost touching the kneecap. So I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah, especially if it was reptile like.
What's really interesting, especially, is when they said that it didn't have any eyelids, because snakes really don't have any eyelids. That's why they say when you're in the desert, it's always good to carry a flashlight, so you can, if you see a snake, to shine your light at the snake's face, so it'll miss with the strike, because it can't block out all the light, because the way the little slit.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I watch too much National Geographic all the time. Well, I guess that's just about here to wrap it up, folks. This episode was definitely a little different from what I'm used to talking about because, like I said, cryptids are way out of my wheelhouse. It's definitely a subject I've always been interested in, but don't know enough about them to really want to put it out there. There will be a part 2. Right now, we definitely touched on just Arizona. We will be going from state to state and seeing what other mysterious things lurk in the dark amongst our great nation. Eric, you got anything left you want to touch on?
Just glad everybody who joined us today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember to hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the notification so when the next one comes up, you can come and join us again. And as always, thank you.
All right, folks. And with that being said, we're going to conclude today's episode. So, don't be that guy who's afraid of the dark, because the dark's more afraid of you sometimes. Or do you think it's afraid?